Our next one is a multi-part question.
Oh, boy.
Sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from the son of the birthday girl, John Fell in Baltimore. I wanted to ask you a few questions about a couple of different subjects to mix it up a little. Question 1. Were you a bit disappointed when you figured out and then confirmed wrestling was a work after you got into the business?
No, I wasn't disappointed at all. And actually, I mean, I didn't have to, the confirmation point did not come after I officially got in the business. It was confirmed beforehand. I was just not allowed to, or it's probably the best idea that I didn't publicly proclaim to everybody in the company that I knew that the business was a work, because they kind of knew I knew, most of them, and Teeny knew I knew and didn't say anything, and I didn't want to rock the boat.
It wasn't the kind of thing you said out loud.
No, you didn't just go in, hey, Jerry, by the way, I'm smart to the business. But that's when Jerry Jarrett called me into the room at Channel 5 at TV that day and said, hey, you want to be a manager? He led with, my mother tells me you're smart to our business. Now, I've been the photographer for 6 years, right? And I've never actually come out and said to Jerry Jarrett, yes, I'm smart to wrestling. Some of the guys, Lawler knew, Teeny knew. My friends like Bobby Fulton, Troy Graham, Dream Machine, they knew. But Jimmy Hart knew I knew what was going on. But again, I was smart to the concept, but not to the particular details. So you can't even say that I was fully smart at that point. But yeah, that's the way Jerry led. My mother says, I understand from my mother, you're smart to our business. And I'm humming. I didn't know what to say because I didn't know where he was going. He didn't offer me a job first. That was his lead remark. And I said, yes, sir. What else am I going to say? And then he pitched it. So I wasn't disappointed because there was no revelatory moment. Once you get close and once you're at ringside and I'm taking pictures and I'm trying to watch closely how this stuff works from the beginning, Eve, to try to figure out not only just because I was interested. I always try to figure out how everything worked if I was interested in it. And you see things, and then you start putting things together, and then you start just by, say, you see how things are promoted and the way things work, and slowly it begins to dawn on you, but then you still didn't have the official details and the in-depth education. Just because you knew that wrestling was a work, in those days there was no way to find out otherwise than somebody in it telling you verbally in person, yes, there's something called a booker. They're the ones that put the matches together and decide this. And yes, this is how we do things and why we do things. That was all still a mystery until I actually went in the locker room. But there was I wasn't disappointed. I was further fascinated. This is a secret society that manipulates people's emotions to get them to come in numbers of thousands and tens of thousands to see what's going to happen when these guys do the thing that they do. That's goddamn the most fascinating thing in the world.
Question 2 from John Fell in Baltimore. If Ted DiBiase had stayed with Crockett after the UWF purchase, would you have liked to have had a run against the tag team of DiBiase and Steve Williams?
No. Because Doc and DiBiase, they could have been a babyface tag team in Mid-South because of both of their histories there. But I can't see why Dusty would have wanted to present them as a babyface tag team in Crockett. They were much better as heels, especially by the time they teamed up. Doc was really getting the picture. And, for Doc and DiBiase against the Rock and Roll Express, Doc and DiBiase against the Fantastics, Doc and DiBiase against, any babyface tag team was great. I'm not saying that the Midnight Express couldn't have had a good match with Doc and DiBiase or vice versa, but that wouldn't have been the best use, I don't think, of either team, and I don't see a long-running rivalry. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense. Question 3. What is the one collectible you have always wanted, but either felt it was too expensive or you could never find?
Oh, God, that's a hard question to answer because you have to know everything that exists in the world, right? And some of the things that you probably want the most, you don't even know that they existed. If I don't know that there's ever been something. I mean, yes, Action Comics #1. From the time I was a kid, I wanted that. It was too expensive when I was 8 years old. It was $400. What would $400 in 1970 be today? Probably somewhere around. It wouldn't even be $4,000 because it wouldn't even be 10 times. That's since the mid 50s. So it was too expensive when I was 8 years old. It was $400, and now it's $2 million. Still too expensive. That's not a wrestling collectible. I'd love to have, just for the fuck of it, I'd love to have an autographed picture of Strangler Lewis. But I assume those are out there, but I've never searched the internet for them. I've seen a lot of things at wrestling fan fests, and some of them, especially, years ago, I was like, well, I shouldn't spend that much money. But at the same time, it's hard to come up with, one thing that I don't search the internet now with eBay and all this other shit because I would nickel and dime myself to death. I wouldn't buy $1 million thing. I'd buy 100,000 $10 things. So, I can't say that there's one thing that I saw that's too much money besides Action #1.
Question 4, the final question from John Fell. Which do you prefer, or did you prefer, Gray Hulk or Green Hulk?
Well, actually, I was exposed to Green Hulk first because Hulk was only gray in issue. Was it 1 or was it 1 and 2? I think it was just 1, right? Issue 1. But nevertheless, by the time he got to the Avengers, the first time I was introduced to the Hulk was in the early Avengers comics that I got from my cousins, and he was already green. And then later on, when I went back and bought the Hulk #1, I said, well, what the fuck? I thought I had a misprint. See, he's gray. And then the Overstreet, by that time it had come out, and it Hulk gray in issue 1s. Okay, everybody's is like that. But I'd seen the green one first, and green makes more sense. Green's a more lively color. And, the green-eyed monster, green with jealousy, turn green, whatever the case. Gray is just a drab monster. Actually, as we know, Karloff was green. It's just it photographed gray in black and white film.
Did you ever see the movie The Munsters made, Munsters Go Home, where all of a sudden you get to see them in color?
Yes, and that's the thing, and everybody's like, oh shit, Herman's green.